Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I do feel like the expectations of me are higher now than perhaps they should be. I'm kind of up there and competitive with the top guys, and on a good day, I can do really well, and that's obviously what I'm training for, and always trying to improve and get to that level where hopefully I can be the person to beat. But I definitely feel like my stock maybe went up more than it should, but I'm okay with that. That's probably a good thing.
What's up, guys? Joining us on the show today, we have a renowned Jiu Jitsu competitor and instructor, and he is an ADCC absolute bronze medalist.
His upcoming instructional with BJJ Fanatics called the Guard Retention Anthology is going to be releasing shortly, and it might actually be out by the time you're listening to this episode. So we're very excited to have on today Lachlan Giles.
How are you guys?
Good man. Good. Super stoked to have you on. Super stoked.
How's life in the States?
Well, you know, we're slowly starting to be able to do things again. We weren't allowed to leave the country to come fly down to you to do this interview in person, so that was a bummer. But
that's probably our country's fault, not yours.
Well, you guys are still like in you're in stage
strict.
4 super lockdown, right?
Yeah, we're still in that at the moment, so I get to leave. We're allowed to leave the house for 30 minutes of exercise or work if you're an essential worker. But
has it been like that since the whole thing started, or did you guys go back into that quarantine?
Yeah, we went back here. So it kind of started to open up. We never got to the point where we had proper jiu-jitsu classes, but we got to the point where there was gyms were open for non-contact training. And then there was some sort of outbreak because of a hotel quarantine, and it all got out of hand, and they locked us all down again. So I don't know what the long term. I mean, the plan is to get it from what they've said now is to get it down to 0. So
to get the cases down to 0.
Yeah, so basically to get rid of it, which is
it seems like a lofty goal.
It's the bomb strategy.
Yeah, it's wishful thinking.
Does it make it easier to be in lockdown when you're married to another world-class jiu-jitsu competitor and you can maybe train a little bit at home?
Yeah, it definitely helps. I mean, it's I'd probably go insane if I had no jiu-jitsu at all, and especially I think even just being married, just having someone with you. I can't imagine like for the last basically 6 months of if you had to basically be by yourself, you'd go insane.
I just rolled for the first time the other night with Mike because we were like, well, we're already, we're allowed to be in the same room to do the podcast because I guess we can label that as work. Yeah. So it was strange to not roll for like 6 months and then be back at it.
Yeah, for sure. It's I think there's going to be a lot of people with some bad cardio, so it's a good time to take advantage of that. Gang up against the person who usually beats you and go after them.
Has this given you more time to work on finalizing the Guard Retention Anthology, or has it been more difficult because you can't actually work the technique and train?
So there was a period where they had professional athletes were allowed to train for a little while. So there was a period where we could train and I could work that. So it was quite good for that. But obviously now that's no good. Ari is who I did the Guard Retention Anthology with. He was smart enough to leave Melbourne about a month or a month and a half ago. So he's in Sydney where they're back training and doing all that, whereas I'm stuck here. So no, but I got plenty of chance to work it. Obviously maybe not to the same degree as normal, but yeah, I still had plenty of chance to work on that. It's been really, it's actually kind of, I quite like having a very, like getting to train with like 1 or 2 people. Sometimes you evolve the most doing that because it's like you have reactions and your opponent learns your reactions and they counter it, and then you have to come up with you kind of see each other evolving relative to each other, which I think is really good.
What's the plan going forward? Like, I mean, obviously training, you're modifying your training schedule and everything, but like 2021's right around the corner. Hopefully the quarantine ends, but obviously ADCC.
Yeah.
And is this
Yeah, that would be the main goal will be ADCC. So I'll probably, I mean, it's been nearly a year now since I've competed, since last ADCC. So, but I mean, for me, I don't feel like I need to compete for experience so much as just to just see what's working and what's not, and so on. So I mean, I'll do some. I think once everything's open up again, I'll start competing again. But I'll probably first, in the meantime, I'm really just working on expanding my skill set a little bit and what I'm comfortable using, and then there'll be probably just testing that out in some competitions to make sure I'm, comfortable using the techniques and the adaptations I've made in competition in the lead up to ADCC. So that's probably the real strategy, competition wise. So everything else at the moment, it's really just skill development. I'm not really training what I would say is hard. Like I'm not leaving the sessions or waking up each day not being able to move. I'm trying to work my skills and making sure everything flows and having very technical roles at the moment, I guess I'd say.
Now, after the most recent ADCC, it seemed like the biggest story coming from that tournament was, I mean, this is kind of weird to say, but like you were the biggest story coming out of that thing, getting third place in the absolute. Did you feel like more heat coming after that? Did you feel a big thing? Like I would say I was a Lachlan Giles hipster where I was in on stealing all your stuff before you got that third place.
Yeah.
Do you feel more outside pressure coming in?
Do you mean like on performance or just like
well, I guess like both, on your own performance or more people, like could you feel more eyes on you?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, obviously, I mean, definitely more. I got more popular, which is obviously a very good thing when you're trying to sell instructionals and so on.
Sure,
so like,
sure.
In terms of that, that's really good. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I do feel like the expectations of me are higher now than perhaps they should be. I mean, I personally kind of view myself as a good competitive grappler in my division. Like I could, against any of the guys in my division, I can have a really good match with. I don't think my record sort of suggests that I'm like the guy to beat in the 77 kilo division or anything like that, which some people might some people might view it that way after the open weight performance. But like my personal opinion from my competition history, I guess, and competitive history is that I've always been improving, but I feel like I'm kind of up there and competitive with the top guys. And on a good day, I can do really well. And that's what I'm training for, and always trying to improve and get to that level where hopefully I can be the person to beat. But I definitely feel like my stock maybe went up more than it should, but I'm okay with that. That's probably a good thing.
Well, 77 kilos is stacked to begin with. I mean,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's some monsters.
Yeah, I think it's the hardest division probably out there in terms of. I mean, I remember walking into that bracket, and I was like, I don't know who I want to fight. Like I looked at every name, and I was like, yeah, they're all hard, for different reasons, and obviously you look at someone like JT Torres and you'd say, okay, he's a hard guy to game plan against in that rule set. Like I don't see an area where someone like JT, you can be like, oh yeah, I can definitely, do this. I mean, maybe leg locks is something, but he's also very hard to, like, when do you see JT Torres in a leg entanglement? It's not so common to see. The same with Lucas Lepre actually, but so he's obviously the man to beat in that division at the moment. But there's so many people who are, I'd say would be almost pretty much the same difficulty in a match. So yeah,
you set the bar pretty high for yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, like you got a lot to live up to this one after that absolute run. I remember watching it live time after the Kynan match.
Maybe I won't try leg locks at all.
After that Kynan match, I was like, what the fuck just happened? Like I was
Hey, I was too.
Now, when you're preparing for big events like that, do you look at specific people and like each match you might train for matches you're expecting, or are you training more just as an overall, like I'm just trying to get better in certain positions you feel like you're lagging in? Like, how do you approach that?
I think it would be. I more train what I think is a good strategy. I think I train my strategy more than I would train like trying to prepare for an individual opponent. Just because I think that there's 16 people in the division. You could prepare for one person and then get shocked by getting someone else, and like there's too little chance that you actually meet that individual person. I suppose the only person I would say that it is, you could maybe look at like the top three favorites. Like you could maybe look at your JT Torres, Gary Tonin, and was it Wagner Hoscher, and you could maybe it might be worth if you feel like you're gonna get to the final, you're probably gonna face one of them. Like it might be worth trying to have a specific game plan for them. But otherwise, I think working your own strategy and being aware of, I like to just be aware of like the strengths and weaknesses of my opponent, so that might just be the day before, once the bracket's announced, I go, okay, let me watch some matches. And usually that's the best way to freak yourself out. But, just to go, okay, like if you let that person get to this position, you're going to be in trouble. Like just general awareness of where to avoid. I try not to look into it too deeply. I think if you look so deep that you think you're going to find some hole in their system that you can exploit, I think in the heat of the moment, that's really hard to do. You're better off just kind of, okay, they're good here. I'll kind of just, whenever we start moving towards it, I'm going to fight like mad to push it away from that and get back to what I wanted to do. I think it's probably the extent I think you should do that. I think actually probably on that, I think the best thing would be to get your training partners to, this is in an ideal world, but you'd have your, maybe I'd have a really good training partner. I'd be like, okay,
right,
you're going to study JT Torres' game, and basically you're going to be JT Torres whenever I roll with you for the next 6 months. Try and do what he does. And that way I'm kind of learning to deal with that game without having to focus on it. I can focus on what I'm doing, but someone's, emulating that. I think that would be ideal, but
yeah,
who wants to be the training partner that, trains 6 months for someone else?
When you're preparing for these big events, is it hard to balance teaching and when you have students, obviously don't want to say like, hey, you have to be JT Torres for 6 months and maybe not get any better because you're just being JT Torres.
Or find a new place to train.
Yeah. But is it difficult to balance your job as an instructor versus a competitor? And does your job as an instructor influence how you prepare?
Yeah, it's definitely difficult to balance. Like I feel like I would be a better grappler if I was 100% a full-time competitor and didn't do any other, I didn't do seminars, I didn't do even, didn't do instructionals or anything. Like I just trained, analyzed my footage of my training session when I got home, trained again at night, and just was, basically like, 8 hours a day focused on the game. I think that would probably be the best thing. But I don't think, maybe that's useful for achieving your goal, but you don't really get to make a living doing that, which is the other part. So I think for definitely like having to coach other people and just being on the mat and moving around and having to roll and help and demonstrate and all that sort of stuff, kind of, it does take away from a bit of your own training. But at least I'm working in jiu-jitsu. That could be, some people are working a desk job, and that makes it harder to, at least there's some carryover of teaching jiu-jitsu, or quite a lot of carryover of teaching jiu-jitsu to actually being able to perform.
As someone who works as a desk job, I can attest, I'd be much better at jiu-jitsu if I could work in jiu-jitsu full time.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm taking third place in the absolute at ADCC, but I might be a little bit better and have an easier time beating up on Mike.
You never know. You might get there.
But it does seem like you enjoy instructing and doing the instructionals. Like, that's one thing I think a lot of people take away from the content you put out, is that you seem to really enjoy doing it.
Yeah. It's actually, to be honest, especially making an instructional, I actually think in some ways making instructional is a really good way of training, because it makes you, I mean, I'd say every instructional I've made, I actually learn quite a lot, because I don't just, I think a lot of people, to be honest, they kind of just go, oh, I'm just going to show up tomorrow at the filming studio and I'll tell them everything I know, and then I'll go home. And whereas for me, I film it myself, I edit it myself, and I send it off. But it's usually like a 3 to 6 month process of making that instructional, where I'll watch myself roll, and I'll often teach something, and then I might even film it and teach it, and then because I know what I've said, and then when I'm rolling, I'm like, hey, I'm doing something different to what I said.
Right.
I pay more attention. I'm like, I said on the video that I would do this, but I'm actually doing this. So then I can go back and I can add that in and put more context into it. And I think like you actually learn quite a lot when you have to verbalize it. And often you pick up a bunch of new concepts that you were doing, but you weren't aware of. And when you become aware of them, it actually makes you better. You actually start looking for those patterns a bit more in those positions. And I actually think that was a huge thing for the leg locks. Was, I'd filmed that instructional. I think I finished filming it maybe like 2 or 3 weeks before ADCC. And I'd been doing constant re-editing and going back to it, and I really felt like that was a big part of the process of sharpening up my leg locks. So hopefully I can do some more of that in the lead up to this ADCC. I feel like that, my guard retention now, I feel just from doing the guard retention instruction, I actually don't know how I managed to kick my guard before. Like a lot of the stuff I'm doing now, it's very different to what I was doing, a year ago.
Always evolving.
It hasn't been tested by me. Like I haven't gone out and competed with it yet, but certainly from what I feel in the gym, I just feel so much more confident there. So I'm hoping that's the next big one that does translate across.
How big was prior to like the quarantine and everything? How many students did you have at your school?
We've got about 400 students. This is across
Jesus.
It's a MMA gym, so that's across Jiu Jitsu, Muay Thai, and wrestling, and some boxing and so on. But like our Jiu Jitsu is probably our biggest one of the three. So I'm just guessing there's probably about 250 Jiu Jitsu members.
Oh, nice. That's enormous.
I don't know how many there'll be when we open back up. like how many people are going to lose interest, and how many transient members will have kind of recently signed up and not be interested. Yeah, it's definitely a big. We'll take a big hit, but I'm sure it'll bounce back pretty quick once it's eventually there.
Yeah, and if you don't, if all your training partners leave, you can fly out here, because we got this nice like 10-foot mat space in my garage that you can just train with Justin and I. Yeah,
perfect.
So
where are you guys? Which part of the states are you guys in?
So I'm in Pennsylvania and Justin's in New Jersey.
Nice.
So we're basically sort of in between New York and Philadelphia on the East Coast.
Yeah, you'd have lots of I imagine in Pennsylvania there'd be lots of good wrestlers, right?
Yeah. You want to talk about wrestling?
Don't.
Yeah. I'd love to go and like do a wrestling training camp for ADCC. I think that'd be really good. But,
we actually have a couple regional Olympic regional training centers like right by us. So
really?
Cool. Yeah. Pennsylvania. Good.
Is it something that I guess there's, from what I understand, that the difficult thing is actually as a casual, or like coming from a jiu-jitsu background, it's kind of hard to get in and train with like a high level wrestling team, which is fair enough, really. They're training with wrestlers for wrestling, they're not training. They don't want to have some crappy jiu-jitsu guy coming along and
So
doing it.
I see some of the Danaher guys, like they'll get in with the New Jersey like regional training center. So like if
Yeah.
you have contacts, they'll like let you in. But Jersey's a big wrestling state too. So it's
Yeah.
but
You might have a
it's
little
like
more
hub.
pull than we do getting into some of these places. To
Yeah,
do a
they won't
wrestling
let
camp.
if me and Justin showed up, they'd kick the shit out of us and throw us out. If you showed up, they'd probably be pretty nice to you. So.
Okay. I don't think they'd know me. Yeah.
I think you come up more on a Google search than we do right now. So
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Give us a couple years.
when you're now, you mentioned how doing the guard retention anthology is improving your guard retention. When you look at doing an instructional, do you look at it as something, all right, I want to get better at this, so I'll do an instructional on it? Or do you look at it as like, I'm really crushing it right now with guard passing, so I should do the guard passing anthology? Which way does it go?
Yeah. It can be either. Yeah, it can be either. It's usually something. I usually don't go, I'm going to make an instructional on that until I feel like I'm good at it. The guard retention was probably one slightly different in that because it's a collaboration with Ari, and Ari has really, really good guard retention, really high level, and that's like rolling with him. I was like, okay, I want to learn what you're doing, like maybe because it's kind of a different. Has quite a different style. It's very like open guard based guard retention. I've always kind of tried to draw into some sort of like entanglement, a half guard or something to kind of connect to my opponent and then kind of try to fight off that way, like through layers that way. Whereas he plays a lot more open style, and I was never that comfortable in that open style, and that's probably why it's been a big shift for me is getting comfortable dealing with like kind of allowing people to be passed, not allowing them, but you kind of have a choice to kind of guide people to pass around, under, or through your legs, and kind of being comfortable for them to be going for the around and under, as opposed to just drawing them into some sort of entanglement where they go through. With Ari being so good with his, I kind of thought, well, I want to learn that, and we might as well, his knowledge combined with mine, we had kind of different styles of guard retention. We could probably put a good product together, and then in doing that, I feel like as we improved, and just usually like same with Ari, like a lot of the things that he was doing that he would then look at and go like, oh, I hadn't, now that I have to teach it, I see it differently. And sometimes I would notice something he was doing because I'm trying to learn his style. I'm like, well, I'm having issues here, like, and then I'd go, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, like that is different, like we'd kind of work out some good extra content, a lot of things that I don't think I've seen taught before. So not saying it doesn't exist, but yeah, definitely different to how I approached guard retention before it.
Well, I saw when you put out the preview for the anthology, like anthology is the right word to use for the guard retention anthology because it is extensive. How much?
Yeah.
How much were you planning the instructional and just kept realizing, oh, this is something else and something else and something else? Like, is it sort of naturally flow that way, or did you guys sit down and think these are all the topics we have to cover and work from there?
Yeah, I kind of but I don't just go in and film and like it's all, I always like plan it out and write it out. And so I kind of have a general list, and then sometimes along there, it's like, sometimes you're like, oh, we're going to, this is the topic, and you don't know, you could think that it's going to take a minute, but it takes, 5 minutes to go through a particular topic and so on. So it certainly can get quite extensive. And then, but I mean, my main thing with my instructionals is I'd rather like someone walk away from it and go like, okay, I don't, that like the answers are in there. I don't want them to walk away like, oh, like, yeah, but they didn't cover that. I wanted to cover everything, but the problem with that is that it becomes very extensive and expansive, and it becomes almost too much information for someone to want to actually sit through. And that's not, I don't make my instructionals with the aim of someone sitting down and watching it like a movie and expecting to take in all the details that way. Maybe the conceptual part of it, like I go through some of the concepts and so on, like you can kind of sit down and watch that and you get it, right? But the technical side, I kind of expect people to go and, they might watch a little bit, go and train and go, geez, I'm having trouble with this. And then it should be quite easy for them to then identify the area they need to watch to fix the issue. And that's why I've got a long techniques list. The reason I have a long list is because I actually want people to be able to like find the thing they want and watch that, and not have to sit through, not have to sit through an hour of watching to hope that I cover something. They should be able to go, oh yeah, that's the area I'm having an issue with. I'm going to just watch that part. And then, the next time I have a different issue, I go to the next one. That's how I tend to do it. And that's why I try to have these big long lists because of that.
That makes sense. You want people to know what they're getting. Is there a release date finalized yet? I know it's sort of up in the air.
I don't know. I usually send it off to Fanatics, and then they kind of one day it's online. I think it's from the sounds of it, it's pretty much all ready to go. So I'm expecting in the next week or so.
When do we get our advanced copy?
Because I was just going to say, if you want to send it, right? if you just want to play it in the background now for us to screen, we'll be fine with it. It's
fine. I'll share screen.
Yeah, I'd be happy to let you know what we think of it as the first viewers.
Yeah, perfect.
The next BJJ Fanatics is how to demoralize people over 200 pounds in the absolute division. That's
that's right.
I think Mike still qualifies for that. So people. When you come to train in the garage, you can,
Yeah, he beat Kainan Duarte and Muhammad Ali, but he's gonna have trouble with me. Yeah, get the fuck out of here.
Have you been able to keep the fitness up during the quarantine, or has it been? What have you been able to do for the cardio?
No, just rolling. Like, I'm still rolling, so not like I don't feel like I would be able to do a match right now with any level of like high degree of fitness, but I'm keeping in shape. I haven't put on any weight, which is nice. I'm pretty much sitting at the same size, so it's going okay like that. But certainly, I mean, to me, most of my cardio actually comes from training wrestling, but I haven't really been doing that. So that's going to be a big shock once I get back to that.
Even when you're preparing for like ADCC, is that most of your cardio comes from sport-specific training? Do you do a lot outside?
Yeah. No, I just do training. Mostly because I'm lazy, and not lazy, because I think it's hard work still. But I don't enjoy going for runs or any sort of even weights. I don't really enjoy like conditioning. I like training. I want to win because of technique, and I don't want my cardio to be an issue. Like, I don't want to get tired. I think that's what I don't want to be so out of shape that I get tired. But I feel like if I'm efficient with my movement, then if my cardio is not like the best in the division, but I can still keep up throughout most of the match, I'm happy. Same with strength. I mean, obviously use your strength when you can, but I feel like if the techniques, if you get the right angle, it doesn't really matter about strength too much. So that's my general approach. It's, mostly laziness.
How are they keeping up with like monitoring, I guess, like this quarantine out there for you? You said like you're only allowed out of the house 30 minutes. Like, they're not checking in on that, right? Has anybody got jammed up for it, or?
There's some people. I don't know if anyone's been fined for the 30 minutes thing. I know they had because we've got a curfew as well, so you can't go out after 8 p.m. which is now they're so nice they extended it to 9 p.m. Being so generous. Wow. But I know some people have been fined for that. You're also not allowed to be more than 5 kilometers from your house. So there's people that have been fined for being more than 5 kilometers from their house.
So let me just tell you this: if they tried to do that over here, they would burn this country to the ground. We are having so so many issues with just the stipulations that are in place over here regarding the quarantine, that if they tried to do that, this country would burn. It would be incredible. So it's
we always say we're not a political show.
Yeah,
try not to say anything political because we do live in a country where whether or not there's a pandemic is somehow a political opinion. So I'm interested to hear what it's like in a country where that doesn't seem to be happening as much.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge there's a lot of it's very politicized here, I don't know, it's a hard one to, I mean, I feel like what's happened here is that we, obviously at first there was a lockdown to try to stop the virus from, overwhelming the hospitals, and then what just kind of happened was in Australia, pretty much half of the states of Australia pretty much got rid of it. Like there hasn't been a case there for like 3-4 months, and they all locked their borders. So people from Melbourne and so on, like where we are, couldn't go there. And then, so now, like where I am in Melbourne or Victoria has had a big outbreak, whereas like New South Wales and the other big states, they're getting like less than 10 cases a day, really. So it's all seems very managed. So I think what's happened is they kind of, the government in Victoria has kind of looked and compared themselves to all the other states around, and we're doing really badly compared to them, even though we're doing well compared to the rest of the world. And they're like, oh, we have to try to catch up to them. But definitely, it really sucks for, martial arts and gyms and, anyone who runs a business. It's terrible for. So anyway, we can move on from.
Yeah, half the people are gonna stop listening if you don't agree with exactly what they say, and the other half are gonna get mad. So, I have a new shirt idea for our show. We're just gonna say "not a political show" because there's enough of those right now. Guys get a lot of people coming in to train, like dropping in specifically for preparation for big tournaments. Like now that you guys have Craig Jones, like, are people dropping in just specifically for you, and what's that feel like?
Yeah, there's been a bit of that, which is that's pretty cool actually. I really like having usually someone who drops in for jiu-jitsu is like someone who's right into it. So it usually means they're usually pretty good or well, quite knowledgeable. So it's someone else to have on the mat to roll with the guys and extra talent on the mat. So I always like having drop-ins. It's definitely increased since the ADCC performance, or even since Craig's performance, and so it's certainly been good there. We don't get too many people doing it for like comp preparation, purely because we're in Australia, like because it's in Australia and it's still so far to go for competition overseas. It doesn't happen too much in that regard. Like if you're going to go if you want to do a training camp, they might as well fly to the US and train there, right, and then compete. And because you get over the jet lag and so on, like it kind of almost doesn't make much sense for them to come to Melbourne, do a training camp, but then have to fly and be jet lagged and not be well adapted for the tournament. So we don't get so much of that. But we've had quite a few people move from other parts of Australia to come and train with us, and we occasionally get people who have moved from like from Japan, or had some people from like Norway and so on who've come to Melbourne, and they say one of the reasons was to come and train at the gym. Obviously they want to travel and see Australia, but they also say one of the reasons was to train at the gym, which I think is really cool.
Well, we usually end our shows by inviting ourselves to your academy to come train. So
yeah,
as soon as
please please do.
As soon as we Americans are allowed in Australia, we'll be happy to drop in and get beat up by you for a little bit.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, you guys should definitely come down, and we'll do a live.
Absolutely.
As well.
Yeah, that's a verbal that comes along with it. Yeah, unfortunately,
that's a verbal commitment that you have to come back on. So
yeah,
contractually obligated now. Have you ever been to Vegas?
Yeah, I've been to Vegas.
That's where.
Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say, just lock yourself in a hotel room before this competition.
Because ADCC is there. Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
Just lock yourself in a hotel room before you go there.
Yeah.
Have some fun after the fact.
Yeah, it'll be a good event actually.
No, I haven't heard anything. I just, it was bizarre because they're advertising it so far in advance. I know the trials, like they're having the East Coast and West Coast trials coming up soon and whatnot, but they're already advertising it and they're promising big things for it. So,
we've got the Asia Oceania, like the Australia and Asia trials are in December, I think, but I don't think anyone from Australia is going to be able to go. It's in, I think it's in Singapore, but when no one's allowed to leave Australia. So
now you already being a returning medalist, you already get an invite, right?
Yeah, I should get an invite. I'm pretty sure. So
that's awesome.
But it sucks for all my teammates, and we've got a whole bunch of people that have been, preparing for this for a long time. So,
well, hopefully this is done soon. I mean, I think it's sort of oversimplified to say we're all ready for it to be done, but I'm ready for it to be done.
Yeah. I think everybody is. So
yeah,
we really appreciate you coming on. I know with the time change and everything, it was a little bit of a challenge, but we really, really appreciate you coming on and talking to us and getting into everything. You have a sort of a different perspective, I think, than a lot of people in the way that you train and approach things. So we really appreciate you breaking it down.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Like you said, you're already locked in for episode number 2. So
all right,
don't forget about us.
I'm there.
When you win gold in absolute, don't forget about us. You already said you'd come back on.
That's right. I won't. You'll be first interview after that.
Oh, see perfect. It's on tape.
All right, see you guys.
Thank you, man.
See you guys.
All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. Huge thanks to Lachlan Giles for coming on the show and talking with us. If you'd like to follow him on social media, you can do so at Lachlan_Giles. And don't forget to follow us on social media. The link is in the description below. Also, you can find the link to our YouTube page below, and that contains video versions of every episode.
Also linked below is our Patreon account. If you want to support the show, which we really, really appreciate, helps us put out episodes like this, patreon.com/thatjujitsu podcast. There's instructionals, there's technique breakdowns, there's early access to episodes, tons of bonus content, and it really helps us. Patreon.com/thatjujitsu podcast. All the links are below. Check it out. See you next time.
See you next time, guys.
Thanks, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks, guys.